Hey, Judd.
Hello. I'm trying to figure out why my Windows Skype will not start, because I have a feeling we'll be doing a little Skype screen sharing.
Skype screen sharing. Da, da, da.
Oh, there it is. So did I really just say that? All right.
I got like 3 hours of sleep last night. Kids, and had to get code out of my brain.
Cool.
Hence the roll graph stuff.
Simplifying the node graph, the node roll graph, or
we actually maintain 2 graphs internally. There's the node roll graph, and then there's the roll graph. And we weren't maintaining the roll graph as well as we should have been. Like it wasn't actually checking to make sure that adding a new edge wouldn't cause the graph to become cyclic. And which could cause problems.
Yeah, but a cyclic graph is just a nice linked list.
No, it's an ugly linked list. And it destroys a lot of our invariants, so it had to go.
Yeah. Wonder if we're going to get any of the Nashuans who would be very interested to go over the Ruby 4 stuff with you, with the Rails 4 stuff with you.
I don't know how interesting the Rails 4 stuff is. I mean, it just brings us a fair number of speed and stability benefits from being based on a more modern core framework. But most of what I did for Rails 4 was just a bunch of niggling little fix-ups for things that weren't really.
Didn't affect how we're articulating attribute validation. Gives us the ability to move it around, like from either outside the model into the controller or something. Are there features there?
Yeah, that was the main thing. But from that was the main thing from a programmer's perspective. But from an end user perspective, it didn't really change much.
Right. Oh, sure.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of helped lay the groundwork for the crap that or for the stuff that got, for the attribute stuff or for the Crowbar attrib stuff that I did last week. And I found out that with Rails 4, production mode is actually fully multi-threaded now, instead of being serialized access to the API and the UI. So that's nice. Which has exposed a couple of deadlocks that I now need to go and fix up, which will probably change how we do node creation, which will make your life easier for doing hinting on the admin ranges for the Docker containers.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to discuss that. I'm a little leery of the word hinting, only because it's there's an assumption there that we don't necessarily know what we're getting at, and we haven't really thought through the classifications of the different workload containers, whether they're hardware, VM, or container. And to sort of have at least a loosely defined system
Well,
articulating the requirements for, the different.
the change that I have in mind because it completely gets rid of IP hinting altogether.
Yay.
Yeah. Instead, when you create a node, it doesn't get any roles bound to it by default.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can then allocate an address with an optional suggestion, and that the act of allocating the admin address will bind the network admin roles to it. And then I'm going to add another API call that will let you get and set the rest of the default roles onto the freshly created node. And that'll give you a chance, along the way, give you a chance to actually change them or change their configuration before the node gets marked alive and it gets auto-committed to kick off discovery. And I'll probably do that in about 3 different pull requests. But I think kind of the goal there is to move some of the magic that we're doing in the back or on the framework, just expose the hooks that make the magic and let people drive them through the API and customize them as needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll be super duper. Because I'd like to be able to come in and for the nodes, the types of nodes that I know will be showing up, tell Crowbar how to respond to them differently. What I like surfacing the primitives that way, but I don't want to lose the convenience that you get by total discovery. So maybe an API call, which would be something like provision container and versus provision VM versus provision hardware. How would that fit into what you're thinking about here?
I don't really like that particular breakdown.
Okay.
I mean, what's the difference between all of those when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of what Crowbar will do with it?
Well, the difference between a VM and a container is vast because containers.
I don't care about vast theoretical differences. I care about what is the difference in terms of what node roles get bound to the freshly created node with what settings. That's what I want the answer in terms of.
Right. So, I mean, the easy, obvious answers are, well, we've got no BIOS, and we may not even have SSH. We might not even have a role for managing via SSH. If we want to manage a Docker container via standard in, standard out from the host OS, that's perfectly legitimate and might save us a lot of processing time and a lot of complexity on each of the container nodes by not installing SSH on them.
Right, but what I'm saying is I don't want the API to expose things like provision physical node, provision VM, and provision container. I want the API to expose primitives with useful defaults for each of those settings, or for each of those types.
Cool. Oh, yes. Okay.
And, the fun part is working out what the primitives are going to be. For VMs and actual physical hardware, I think we've got a pretty good handle on that. Containers, though, require a greater degree of customization.
Yeah. What do you think of the idea of allowing folks to manage containers via standard in, standard out.
It'd just be another jig.
Yeah. It would definitely be a container jig. And a container jig could even have two modes, like an SSH mode and a standard in, standard out mode, I guess.
Well, if the container is using SSH, then we can just use the script jig for whatever we need.
Yeah.
No need to reinvent the wheel there. But managing via standard in, standard out, that'd be a little bit trickier, mostly because we'd have to re-implement parts of expect to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what I feel about
writing an expect jig.
Well, no, it's not an expect jig. It'd be more along the lines of an expect daemon.
Yeah.
Each node would have to have something dedicated due to the way Docker works. If standard in and standard out go away, the container is. So.
Yeah, if they go away, the container is considered dead.
Yep.
Yeah, a heartbeat would have to be established. Just, I don't know, hitting enter and waiting for your PS,
No. I don't think we need a heartbeat to start with. If standard in and standard out are still open, then the container is still alive.
So you just check for file open, so the jig would be constantly running. It would be always alive.
That's why I said we would need to write a daemon to manage that stuff. Because I don't want that to run in the same process space as the web server.
Well, could it even? I mean, because I would imagine that it would have to live on the host node and not on, it would have client server between the Crowbar admin server and the host node that was hosting the containers.
Maybe not.
Because, I mean,
depends on whether or not the host node, depends on whether or not the node that's hosting the containers is also managed by Crowbar.
Right. I think for standard in, standard out, unless you're connecting through, I don't know, UUCP, I mean, how would we connect to the standard net, standard in, standard out over the net, over TCP?
SSH plus tmux, SSH plus screen.
Yeah, so we SSH into the host box, right? And then
the Docker and the container runs under screen or tmux or whatever.
Yeah. Or just a pseudo titty.
That's what screen and tmux would manage for us.
Yeah, give us a lot more.
I don't want to implement what they do.
No. But again, that assumes that we're using Crowbar to manage the host node.
Yes, if we're not using it to manage the host node, things become vastly more complicated.
Yeah, then we
so
can.
I'd rather not get into that, and I'd rather not get into that until we have a demonstrated need to get into that. But I think we have wandered way afar field, and since it's probably, is it still just us? No, there's a third person. Oh my God, Rob.
What's one on hint death? Is that heat death or hint death? Well, no, I think, it's since we don't have the, we've wandered far afield, but this is, I think, important design stuff to consider alternate ways of managing containers, especially if we're going after the Docker community, and we want to add a lot of value there. When I was
at the Docker community, my path going forward for that would be, oh, hey, Koros is one of the operating systems we can deploy now. And then do do any work for managing containers based on top of that.
But is CoreOS really a prerequisite? Sure, the Docker community would prefer CoreOS, host OS, but it doesn't have to be.
Right. That's why I said that is the way that I would prefer to go.
Right. But what, out of my ignorance, what is CoreOS giving Docker that like an Ubuntu or CentOS wouldn't, other than being its super lightness?
That's basically it.
Yeah.
Super lightness, built-in etcd support. It already knows how to run Docker containers in the background and all that other crap. Well, for that matter, we could do that. We could do that as well. It's just that then reattaching and detaching to them is a little trickier.
Well, we are already, by considering looking at deploying workload containers, trying to get in their business, is like ICME on the CoreOS such a blocker towards adoption by the Docker community?
I said it'd be my preferred way to do it. I didn't say it'd be the only way we'd have to do it.
Right. A fast way to do it.
There are a number of ways that we could do it, but in the name of actually making progress, I would just tend to pick whichever one seems to be the simplest to initially implement and go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think CoreOS is that large of a lift.
Rob, is that you? Rob's asking if there's any update on the API and process for heterogeneous OS deployment.
It works.
It works.
I demonstrate how to do it in api.md.
Cool. Who just joined?
Shelley.
Hey, Shelley.
Pardon me, I didn't mean to disturb everybody. Sorry, I'm late.
No problem. There's only
all three, maybe four of us.
I finished all my testing and closed up my stuff, so I was actually available for once.
Ooh. Nasty. But yeah, I mean, multi-OS support, pretty much all I had to do was once the Attrib API was in place, just make provisioner target OS a writable attribute, and that's it. And then you can change the role template to change the default target globally. You can change the deployment role. You can change it on the deployment role to set the default for a given deployment or a snapshot. You can change it on the node role to change it for a specific node. And what else do you want there?
Mm-hmm. And the deploy process is the old drop an image?
No, we've never dropped an image.
Oh no, not drop-in image. Yeah, the full install,
Yeah,
full driven install, kickstart or what's it called?
kickstart or seed or pre-seeding or whatever.
Hmm. Shelley, is there anything you want to ask or talk about?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm so far behind. I've been head down in testing. I'm actually starting from scratch and learning what it is you guys have been doing. So I was just going to lurk and listen and see what I can find.
Um, hmm. Well, there's a lot.
Again.
What?
Oh, I've been coding in my sleep again. So there's that. And interesting new features to Crowbar and Open Crowbar always seem to get added whenever I do that.
So this is going to be the base of OSM, is that correct?
Nothing is determined. We're just happily continuing on with what we've got.
Okay. I was kind of looking forward to Crowbar 2 so that we can get rid of all the timing issues we have.
Oh, yeah, that stuff is definitely addressed. What OSM itself is up in the air and kind of not for discussion yet.
It's fine.
Because there's a lot more.
I'm sorry if this is a stupid question, but one of the things that had been requested way back before, in the early stages of Crowbar 2 support was the ability to actually rename a node and that becomes its actual host name. In other words, instead of DB8CA3A674DA4, it's data node 1.
There are some entertaining logistical issues with making that actually happen. And most of them involve making sure that updates to the host name happen in all the places that it needs to happen. And I haven't taken the time to inventory where all that is, but where all that stuff should live.
Well, this would be not like, I wasn't expecting it to happen later on after the install, but this would be like, I boot up the node, it shows its MAC address, you change its name at that point, and then you do the install, like bulk edit and then allocate and then...
Yeah, the problem is once the name is created, we use it in all sorts of places, and I'd have to check and make sure that all the places that we use it at would function just as well if the node got renamed.
Okay.
And it doesn't reduce the scope of that checking to do it, just at discovery time? Before allocation?
It does a little bit if we allow it only then, but it's still, I haven't audited the framework to make sure that I can safely do that. Mostly because a long time ago, we added in DNS the ability to change to add arbitrary aliases for things, and
so we're
gets resolved down that way, and it's worked well enough. I think the main reason, am I correct in understanding that the main reason for actually changing the A record in DNS is Cloud Area Manager being a little stupid?
Well, it's not just Cloud Area Manager. It's, usability. Let's say a customer has 3 sets of machines and he wants to give them names so that he can easily associate them. And he has an issue with a machine and he logs into the name. He doesn't have to go look up what's its actual name or anything like that. He sets up scripts using his naming scheme, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that sort of stuff is why we is why aliases are CNAMEs. So that
I
all that
understand
gets
it.
worked through DNS. But yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of auditing the framework and deciding what level of relative importance it actually is.
Okay. I didn't mean to take over this meeting. I was going to lurk and listen.
Oh, we took the meeting over from ourselves really early into it. So
Yeah, we didn't have as much of the audience as we expected. So you are now our special customer.
Ah.
So your questions are even going in the notes.
That's about all I have right now. Thanks.
We've been talking about multi-OS support.
I heard that part.
And multi-container VM and hardware support with a subtitle of Killing Hinting.
well, maybe not killing, but repurposing at least. Killing in terms of IP address hints that is definitely high on the list, though. Things like the MAC address hint, I think, will need to stay around.
Yeah, I was just hoping that would become the CNAME, not the actual host name. I mean, it's not a huge issue. It's just, usability question.
I mean, the reason that doesn't happen right now is that in order for Crowbar to do anything with an object, we have to create an entry in the database for it, and that entry has to have a name. And once that name is established, it gets used in a bunch of different places. Things like the script jig uses it, and the chef solo jig uses it to actually manage the node. And so any updates have to be coordinated in such a fashion that they all change at the right times, so that we don't lose the ability to manage the node or break our stuff.
Would it be possible to just say, have it check back in when I hear this, I'll just give it this name and start again? In other words, forget about it, put an entry.
I've thought of functionality kind of like that for handling node replacements, but it's there's a fair amount of exploratory coding to make that work, or to explore the problem space that has to happen.
Okay.
So, I mean, one of the things Crowbar or Open Crowbar needs to be able to handle is, node X burst into flames, and I have to replace it with some other node drawn from a pool of spares from wherever. How do I get that new node to essentially become the old node?
Which would be the same problem set as a rename.
Yeah, basically.
Ooh. Is being able to access attributes via API interesting to you, Shelley? Because I'd love to force Victor to drag us through some API-driven attribute changes and how they might change a running system.
Sure, I can watch that. That would be very interesting. Like I said, I know 2.0's been out there. I just haven't been able to spend much time on it lately.
Yeah.
That's why I was joining in. So yes.
Okay. Well, let me spin up an admin node, and I will demo things for you. Let me get that going.
Everybody likes movies. I'm starting to think that winter will never end.
It doesn't. This is the new, it said climate change. Forget that global warming stuff.
Yes, climate has changed. This is it.
People
This
get
is what
warmer.
we get.
Some people get warmer.
Well,
some people get colder.
Yeah, I mean, ironically enough, it seems like a large portion of the colder weather we've been experiencing is because the Arctic has heated up, which has made the jet stream more wobbly in winter, which pulls down masses of cold to us air from the Arctic.
Mhm.
Well, it's on average warmer.
The globe is on average warmer. Yes, and the Arctic is much warmer.
Hey,
Judd,
cheap shipping to
calling
China.
you.
Oh, you're trying to call me. I'm missing it. Oh, there you are. Antwerp.
Okay.
I will make for that sharing. Oops. There are window. That window. Big window. Wait, what? Oh, okay. I think you're running Windows for a second.
Oh, I just screwing with you now. Is that legible? That terminal?
In a minute it'll stop pixelating. In a minute we'll get the left side one is what we're looking at.
Yeah.
All right. It's legible to me now.
Let me just make it the full screen because you don't need to see my Emacs. There. Now that font's as big as it'll go. So let's kick off the oldie
Whoa! Look at that.
container in production. While that's going on, let me show you the actual production script because I'm using attribute updates in it now.
Sorry, you're using what?
I'm using the attribute API via the CLI in production.sh now. I'm using it specifically to, if there's an HTTP proxy in the environment variable, I'm going to tell the provisioner that it should use it as the upstream proxy instead of having to rewrite the entire role template.
Nice.
And I'm doing the same thing for what our default operating system is, to set that to CentOS 6.5. Instead of rewriting the whole template, I'm just saying update this specific attribute.
That is super awesome. This is so awesome. We can write so much great stuff on top of this.
Yeah. All you need to do is, provide a schema and, I haven't implemented it, but also potentially provide a qualify schema fragment so that we can do syntax and structure validation for attributes, and then also optionally provide a validation function so that we can do semantic validation of the attribute.
You were going to use you were looking at the qualified gem to do that, no?
I am using qualify for that, yes. Let me show you what I'm doing there.
because Chef doesn't have attribute validation, and at the summit back in November, we did have a meetup discussing attribute validation, and they were inlining the qualified gem.
And there's what I do for attribute validation. This is the validator for the upstream proxy attribute. And you see the schema key. This is actually a fragment of qualify that actually gets wrapped in type, map, mapping, da-da-da-da. So that we're always looking at a fully fledged JSON object, even if the actual attribute itself is only a string or a Boolean or an integer or whatever. And every time you write to it, it validates against that schema to make sure that you passed it something cromulent.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And the way it's set up right now is attributes are read-only via the API unless they have a schema, in which case they are also writable if it would otherwise be writable. Like if you're writing an attribute on a deployment role that's part of a snapshot that's been proposed but not committed, and so on. So all of that logic is still there.
That is so cool.
Okay, let's see how far along we are.
I have a lame little niggle that you're only allowing non-secure HTTP connections.
Huh? To proxy?
No HTTPS, yeah.
I haven't encountered a proxy yet that
that actually uses the secure.
Well, even if you're going to be talking HTTPS via the proxy, I haven't encountered a proxy yet that allows for the initial handshake to be anything other than HTTP.
Mm-hmm.
Like in all the HTTPS proxies, even though we're proxying HTTPS connections, and the very first thing that the app is going to do once it connects to the proxy is to connect to some other stuff, and at that point it just becomes an opaque bit stream. The initial handshake is still done over an unencrypted connection. Like even inside of Dell, that's the way it works. Okay, and we are, okay, so now we have a working admin node. Let's spin up a few. Spin up a few slaves. Whoa. And that's 6 slaves. Just because I can. And if we're lucky, this will turn into a live debugging session when I run into the network address allocation deadlock. Is that legible?
Yes.
To join me?
Yes.
Okay. So the other way that I will show y'all using the admin API or using the attributes API is I'm gonna
Can you hover over the green? Does it say something? Does it say something when you hover over the green dot?
Yeah, it just says the name of the role, or the name of the
Okay.
node role, or the role part of the node role.
Okay.
And green means everything's awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and get a deployment created. And
You created a new deployment, but the nodes won't automatically join that deployment, correct?
no, they don't.
Oh, look, there they are.
How often is that screen going to refresh? Every time you get
Every
an
time
update,
I
or
hit Control R.
okay, just checking. I was just wondering if it was a dynamic,
It refreshes every 10 seconds or so, but I get impatient. I think I actually hit my bug. Let's see. Yep. No, I'm not going to show you the demo.
Deadlock detected.
Deadlock detected. I'm not going to be able to finish my awesome demo.
Bummer.
Yeah. I'm deliberately spawning all the VMs at once so I can trigger this deadlock so that it'll eventually annoy me enough to fix it. That's also part of the impetus for the changes we talked about earlier with lifting the admin IP allocation out of the, having it not be magic, because that happens inside of a nested transaction and I can't roll back without throwing away the entire thing. But if it's not inside of a nested transaction, then I could just catch this deadlock and retry after a random timeout, which should be enough to avoid the deadlock, or to break the deadlock whenever it happens. The reason I'm getting this is because to allocate an address, right now I have to serialize access to the allocations table. Make sure that no two transactions running in parallel can write the same, or can try to grab the same IP.
Yeah, Postgres doesn't have a sequence for IP address ranges.
It does. We don't use it. And that's partially due to laziness on my part so far. I've been trying to solve it in a Rails-y way instead of solving it in a Postgres-y way.
Right.
Although if I can't find a good way to solve it in a Rails-y way, I am going to just modify how ranges and allocations work so it's using native Postgres stuff so that I can do the query and allocate in one call that doesn't need locking.
Yeah. Oh. ORM.
Yep. This is where we run into impedance mismatches. They suck.
So at least we got to see some of the driving of Crowbar via the API, being able to set particular attributes via the API, which is cool. And that's in the Docker admin script that launches the admin
No,
node.
that's in the production.sh script,
Oh,
which incidentally is the same script that you should be able to use to bring up a running open Crowbar on a VM that you had cloned your source into, and other such things. But yeah, that's unfortunately pretty much it for my demo. 'Cause I can't really fix it without killing everything.
or running your node bring up with a sleep.
Yeah, and I deliberately don't do that.
No, don't kill them.
Too late, they're dead. And exit the container.
You brute.
I'm a mean guy, what can I say? But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it as for manipulating attributes via the API. A lot easier than dicking around with JSON and having to actually know or care about the JSON that we wrap all of the attributes into.
So, what are we attacking next?
Let's see. The other changes that I've that have been merged in, or that I've done, have been normalizing the how we create and maintain the role graph, so that instead of the ad hoc half-ass logic that would occasionally cause things to take way too much time whenever we were finding a bunch of nodes to roles, we calculate and resolve as much of the dependencies in advance as we can, and we re-resolve them every time we create a new dependency or a new role. Got rid of the special casing that was handling client roles for Jig, and generally traded off a little bit of slowness in creating the initial database for much faster runtime whenever we have to manipulate the role graph. And the other thing was a patch for Docker admin that if you don't have a no proxy set up, it'll give you a same default for within the container. And if you do have a no proxy set up, it'll add its same default to yours in the container.
Mm-hmm. Did Rob already prove that, or I guess I'll still take a look at it to make sure that passes through.
Yeah, Rob already merged that, I think.
Sometimes I wonder if he tests.
I have no idea. Yeah, Rob already merged it.
Oh. I wanted some, some cred. Too fast.
Yep.
I guess that's about all we got. I could mention that I'm thinking of just adding a warning in the build sledgehammer script. Say if this is failing, use a different mirror in your Kickstarter file, so people don't have to go to the docs.
Fair enough.
Or do you think I should just check in my changes to the Kickstarter file?
I thought you already had.
No, I documented it, not knowing what was actually going on, like in Austin or other places, and just assuming that it was my satellite internet that was causing the problem.
Well, I recall having to change another place that we used mirrors.synthos.org to use mirrors.kernel.org instead. So I think mirrors.synthos.org is just gone. And I never noticed it because I haven't had to rebuild Sledgehammer in a while.
Mm-hmm. Then I will patch that and submit it.
Okay. Sounds awesome.
With the 7 minutes and 15 seconds that we have left, any design principles that our guests would like to question us about? You can be vague, like what makes Crowbar awesome.
Unicorn
it's going to automatically deploy everything for us, right?
No. That's just what it does. What makes it awesome is unicorn farts and rainbows. I add a new batch in with every pull request.
Don't hold that one back on us. I was thinking that it does everything for you, but allows you to screw it up in a myriad of ways.
That doesn't sound good.
No, oftentimes I want to screw things up. Like if you just do what it says, it'll set things up for you the way it wants. But especially now that you can change attributes through an API, you can really change the way your system is being deployed. So not only is it a tool that makes dinner for you, but you can change the recipes.
Well, at least you can change what you're putting into the recipes if we want to overextend the metaphor.
You can change the ingredients. It's such a good thing that the chef people did not call attributes ingredients.
Yes.
That could be just. That would be. I think actually that'd be awesome. All right, so we'll call it.
Okay. Now I'm going to move on to my next challenge.
All right. Thank you, everybody. This has been the Crowbar design meeting of Wednesday, March the 5th, 2014. If you have any questions about what you've seen, please contact us on the mailing list, crowbar@dell.com. That is all. Thanks for playing.
Bye-bye.
Bye.